If you're getting a state pension or claiming a DWP benefit, July 2026 just changed the rules on you, and almost nobody is talking about it. There are three changes rolling out right now that could mean a smaller pension in real terms, a tax bill you weren't expecting, or even a threat to your driving license. Stick with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's changing, when it hits, and what you need to do about it before it costs you money. Let's start with the one that's catching the most people off guard, and it has nothing to do with a letter landing on your doormat. It's about your state pension quietly creeping into tax territory. Here's the background. Thanks to the triple lock, pensions have been rising fast. The full new state pension has climbed to around £241 a week this year, one of the biggest jumps since the triple lock began back in 2011. That sounds like great news, and in one sense it is. More money in your pocket every week. But there's a catch that's been quietly building for years, and it's this. The personal tax-free allowance, the amount you're allowed to earn before you pay any income tax, has been frozen at £12,570 for a long time now. It isn't going up. Meanwhile, your pension keeps rising every April because of the triple lock. Do the maths and you can see where this is heading. The gap between what you're allowed to earn tax-free and what your pension actually pays you is shrinking every single year. Right now, if you're only receiving the new state pension and nothing else, you're just about still under the threshold, but it's tight. Pension experts have warned that even a modest further increase next year could tip pensioners over the line. Some have calculated that even a small percentage rise would push the annual total high enough to trigger a real tax bill for pensioners who've never paid tax on their pension before. And that's before you factor in anyone who has a small workplace pension, a part-time job, or savings interest on top. If you've got any other income at all alongside your state pension, you could already be over the threshold without realizing it. Now, here's the bit that really surprises people. State pension payments are paid without any tax taken off at source. That means there's no automatic deduction happening in the background, the way there is with a payslip. If you owe tax on your pension income, it doesn't just quietly get sorted for you. It either gets collected through an adjustment to your tax code against another income source, or the tax office comes looking for it directly. For a lot of pensioners who spent decades having tax sorted automatically through an employer, the idea of suddenly owing money on their pension feels like being caught off guard by a system they thought they understood. So, what should you actually do about this? First, don't panic, because for most people on the new state pension alone, you're still just under the line. But if you've got any additional income, a private pension, a part-time job, rental income, or decent savings interest, it's worth checking your total income for the year against the personal allowance now, rather than waiting for a letter. Things will usually adjust automatically if you're also employed through your tax code. But if your only income is the state pension plus something that isn't automatically tracked, you might need to register for self-assessment or expect a simple assessment letter through the post. The key message here is that this is now a live risk for people who've never had to think about it before, and that gap between the pension and the tax-free allowance is only going to get tighter as pensions keep rising, while the threshold stays frozen. That's surprise number one. Now let's move on to something a lot more dramatic, because this next change gives officials a power that genuinely shocks most people when they hear about it for the first time. From this month, if you've stopped receiving benefits but you still owe money to the Department for Work and Pensions and you're refusing to pay it back, there's now a route for that debt to affect your driving license. Sweeping new powers officially came into force on the 1st of July 2026, aimed squarely at people who owe money and are refusing to repay it. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't about people currently claiming benefits. It's specifically targeted at people who've already left the benefit system, so future payments can no longer simply be reduced to recover the debt, and who are actively refusing to engage or pay back what's owed. Why does this matter to you even if you think you don't owe anything? Because benefit overpayments happen more often than people realize, and they're not always the claimant's fault. A change in circumstances that wasn't reported quickly enough, a calculation error, a change in a partner's income. These things create overpayments constantly, and until now, the consequences were mostly financial, a deduction from future payments or a repayment plan. Now, for people who've left the system and are ignoring repeated attempts to recover the debt, this kind of escalation is genuinely on the table. If you rely on your car to get to work, to care for a family member, or to simply get around, this is a serious shift in how that debt gets enforced. The practical takeaway here is simple but important. If you've ever had a letter mentioning an overpayment, even years ago, and you've been ignoring it or you think it's gone away, it hasn't. Get in touch, set up a repayment plan if you need to, and don't let it sit. This power exists specifically for people who are refusing to engage, so simply communicating and agreeing a plan, even a very small one, should keep you well away from this outcome. But the era of quietly ignoring a debt letter and hoping it fades into the background is officially over. Now for the third surprise, and this one's a bit different because it's actually good news wrapped inside a system overhaul, but it still catches people off guard because of how much is changing at once for disabled claimants and pensioners with health conditions. Two big shifts landed on the 1st of July. The first is around transparency. Face-to-face and telephone health assessments for disability and sickness benefits are now being audio recorded as standard, specifically to improve transparency in the benefit system. If you've ever heard a story from a friend or relative about a benefits assessment that felt unfair, where what was written up afterwards didn't seem to match what was actually said in the room, this is designed to fix exactly that problem. Every assessment from now on has a recording behind it, which means if there's ever a dispute about what was said or how an answer was interpreted, there's now an actual record to check it against. This is a genuinely significant change for anyone going through a health-related benefits assessment because it shifts the balance of accountability firmly in the claimant's favor. The second part of this same shake-up involves the Motability scheme, and this one surprised a lot of people because it sounds at first like a cut. Reforms to the scheme came into force on the 1st of July 2026, with officials saying these will save taxpayers around £1 billion by 2030, while still protecting disabled people's access to cars, scooters, and powered wheelchairs. Whenever you hear the words reform and savings attached to a disability scheme, it's natural to assume the worst. But the framing here matters. The stated goal is to protect access to vehicles, while tightening how the scheme is administered and funded behind the scenes. If you or someone in your family relies on this kind of support, the sensible move is to check directly with your provider what specifically is changing for your existing agreement, because reforms like this often affect new applications differently to people already in the scheme. Alongside all this, a more personalized form of one-to-one support for people with health conditions is also expanding to a wider set of local offices this month, meaning tens of thousands more disabled people and people with health conditions could benefit from tailored help getting back into work or accessing the right support. It's a smaller change on its own, but combined with the audio recording requirement and the Motability reforms, it tells you there's a genuinely major operational shake-up happening this July, not just a routine policy tweak. So let's bring this together. 3 changes, all landing around the same time, and all catching people off guard for different reasons. Your state pension is edging closer to the tax-free threshold, and with the personal allowance frozen while the triple lock keeps pushing payments up, more pensioners than ever are at risk of an unexpected tax bill they've never had to deal with before. If you've got any old benefit debt sitting unresolved, ignoring it is no longer a safe option because the consequences of refusing to engage have just become far more serious. And if you or someone you love relies on disability benefits or the Motability scheme, this month brings both more protection through recorded assessments and a genuine overhaul of how the system is funded, So it's worth checking exactly how the changes apply to your own situation. None of these three changes were shouted from the rooftops. They landed quietly, buried in departmental announcements and consultation papers, which is exactly why so many people get caught off guard by them months later when the letter finally arrives or the money is already gone. The best thing you can do right now is check your own position. Look at your total income against the personal allowance. Check whether you have any old DWP debt outstanding. And if you're on a health-related benefit or Motability, make sure you understand exactly what's changed for you specifically. If this video helped clear things up, that's exactly why I make these breakdowns every time something changes with HMRC and DWP, because the official announcements are always buried in language most people don't have time to wade through. I'll keep watching these updates so you don't have to, and I'll bring you the next one the moment something changes. Drop a comment if you want me to go deeper on any of these three, especially the pension tax threshold, because that one's going to affect more and more people every single year. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next update.